So you recently wrote a book, Exit Path, How to Win the Startup Endgame. Tell us what inspired you to write this book.
Yes. So, that first startup experience I mentioned with Jackster was a wake-up call for me. We were very successful in the beginning. So we had found a product market fit. We had found an opportunity that existed in the market, which was bringing free texting and free calling to mobile phones. At that time, it was a prehistoric, pre-iPhone era. Mobile phones were not smart, and they didn't have any apps on them. And you would have to pay per text message, and long distance calls were so expensive, students couldn't even call back home. So we wanted to change that. We realized that also social media was very popular, growing in popularity. Places like MySpace, Friendster, Facebook was just getting started. People love to be interacting on these social media platforms. And again, they were not on phones. So we wanted to bridge the gap between the two. So we put out this widget that you could place on your MySpace profile, and people could call you from that. And also it would ring your phone, it would ring their phone. We would bridge the calls over the internet together. And they could also send text messages to you, and it was all free. So it grew pretty rapidly. We went from 0 to 10 million users in the first year of launching. And we got pretty arrogant, and we've said, look, we have $1 billion company here in the making. We don't need to distract ourselves with strategic partnerships or courting potential acquirers, building relationships. We're just going to put our heads down, execute, tune our viral engines, and go for gold. Well, little that we knew, the recession was around the corner. 2008, 2009 hit. Not unlike the times we are in today, where venture capital all of a sudden dries up. We had the top tier VCs on our wish list, on our cap table, but they weren't investing anymore. We couldn't get any new money. And we had a very short runway to try to sell the startup. It was less than a year. In fact, it was just 6 months by the time we figured everything out. And it was just too late to try and build a relationship and have a meaningful exit. I came to learn that subsequently. So we had to do a fire sale. We had one potential acquirer. They basically named their price because the alternative was to shut down the company. And so it was even, I think pennies on the dollar would be a generous way of putting it. It was a very painful experience. I went back and licked my wounds for 6 months, reflected on what had happened, and realized that there was one key strategic decision that was the culprit, potentially. So I tested that hypothesis with my next startup. The first thing I did with webs.com, where I joined as the head of strategy and corporate development, was to not repeat the same mistake. So we had an offsite, weekend-long offsite, miles away from the office. And we sat down and started really thinking about what does it take to succeed? What does success even mean for us as an entity, as a team? What does it mean for our startups, investors, or other stakeholders? And then we came up with a wish list of potential acquirers, started thinking about what makes someone get on the wish list, why do we think so, and how do we rank and prioritize these acquirers against each other? And what would make us attractive to these guys? A lot of good thinking and brainstorming went into that offsite. And the result of that was that within 2 years from that event, we were able to build strategic relationships with these potential acquirers and nurture those relationships to the level that within 2 years, they were excited to actually acquire us. We had multiple public and private companies bidding on us right before we had to raise another round of financing. And when one of them made an offer we couldn't refuse, we tied the knot with them. That was Vistaprint at a very premium valuation, again, because if you're in a competitive process, you sort of have a lot of leverage. And it was more than 10x forward revenues, which is over $100 million at that time. It was a very meaningful outcome for everyone involved, founders, investors, employees. And I sort of, that planted the thought that, look, we did something right here, which was radically different outcome from what I got with my first startup. And I tried to then sort of teach that lesson to other entrepreneurs that I invested in or mentored. I'm part of the Pear VC community. Pear is an early stage fund that focuses on a lot of first-time entrepreneurs, and I have been coaching and mentoring a number of those entrepreneurs and seeing the fruits of, again, this kind of strategic thinking. So I sort of started dawning on me that I have a very unique perspective, having been on multiple seats: lawyer, investor, mentor, buyer, acquirer at GoDaddy, as well as seller of startups, that I can bring all that learning together and share it with other entrepreneurs. At heart, I'm a cheerleader for entrepreneurs and startups. I feel like our future really depends on these startups succeeding. That's the key to having a better climate, better environment, having innovation that actually can help and sustain us. And if we can even tilt the odds of success for these startups a little bit towards success and help these entrepreneurs achieve some of the goals and ambitions that they have, we all win as a society. My daughters will end up living in a better future. So that's kind of all the convoluted thinking that went into pouring the last 5 years into writing this book.